This is the June 4th Making Sense webinar for educators, and it's great to have you with us. My name is Hillary Hunt, Director of the Making Sense Project, and today we're going to focus on professional development opportunities for financial educators, in particular, those that are available through the Making Sense Project. I'm going to give you just a little bit of background about the Making Sense Project overall, and then we will proceed to chat about where this project is and has been and where it's going, and opportunities that you'll be able to avail yourself of in the future. So without any further ado, the Pennsylvania's Making Sense Project, or Making Sense PA, is a partnership between the Pennsylvania Department of Education and Penn State University. I'd like to thank our project partners, both Sally Flaherty with PDE and Dr. Kathy Bowen with Penn State. It is a part of an overall program that is a series of financial literacy and economic education initiatives. The goals of our webinars are really three-pronged: to provide or enhance educator content knowledge with regards to personal finance, highlight financial literacy resources and curriculum, and then share professional information. And really this third component, or the third leg of that stool, if you will, is going to be where we're going to be focusing today in this session. And so that leads us to today. We're going to be talking about new and ongoing resources and professional development from the Making Sense Project. And I'm going to kick it off by giving a little bit of history first. I know a number of you have participated in our programs in the past, but what you might not be aware of is that the Making Sense Project actually came about as a result of legislation that was passed back in 2010 that required the State Department of Education to focus and make sure that they were promoting financial education resources to area school districts, supporting schools and educators that wanted to either expand the amount of financial education or improve the quality of financial education that they were trying to teach. And so this partnership sprung up as a result of that legislation, which continues to be in effect today, and remains part of the school. The public school code. So the Making Sense PA project was born from that. We have been doing a variety of professional development work. And so what I want to talk about today is really sort of where we've been over the past number of years that we've been doing this, where we are now, and where we see ourselves going. And so we're going to look at various aspects of professional development throughout these. In terms of the where we've been, our financial education PD efforts really focused on webinars. And I know a number of you have participated in quite a few of these in the past that are with us today. We have actually been offering these webinars since April of 2012. So, we are obviously, 7 years into this, quick math. We offer about 6 of them per school year, and they're offered twice on each date. So we do an afternoon and an evening session. All of the sessions, or most of the sessions, I shouldn't say all, at some point they were all archived and available online. We're now on our third webinar platform. We started out with one, moved to GoToWebinar, and then this year moved to Zoom. And so along with some of those transitions, some of those are no longer available online, but I'd say the vast majority of the ones that we've done are archived and available on our website that you see there, makingsensepa.org. If you go under the Learn section, the webinars are there with the most recent or upcoming ones listed at the top, and then the archive down below. Average attendance, we saw it really increase for a while, and then it's just kind of plateaued. And so we wanted to really take a hard look at sort of where we've been, what's working well, maybe what challenges we've faced, and how we can improve going forward. And so when we looked at those challenges, one of the things that we realized is that a lot of times with the webinars we were doing, we were trying to hit multiple topics because we were doing 90-minute webinars, and sometimes maybe somebody would be interested in one but not the others, or maybe for a couple of sessions nothing really piqued their interest. They've we recognize that, live sessions like that are difficult for some people to schedule around. So, maybe there's people with after school activities and then, evening commitments. And, if you aren't available that day, you sort of lose out. We also know, and through no fault of our own, but through challenges with PD's, granting of Act 48, we've not been able to provide Act 48 credit for the recorded versions because we can't really track very easily and verify that somebody watched those. And quite frankly, then sort of on the back end, we were having issues with coordinating schedules of multiple presenters because we're doing, you know, 2, 3, sometimes more if we did a panel presenters, and we weren't just asking them to be with us once on a day, but twice, once in the afternoon, once in the evening. And so coordinating all those schedules, was definitely something that was a bit of a challenge, not insurmountable, but, still certainly a challenge. And so we made some changes. We looked at what we wanted to do to address those challenges. And so one of the things that we did is we shortened everything to an hour. So the webinars this year have been only an hour long, which we think works well. The feedback that we've gotten has been very positive. And we're really trying to limit them to one topic per session. Now, with that, we've added some new formats. Some of you might have done some of our 6 and 60, where we've done 6 resources in 60 minutes. So we aren't just sticking to one resource, but they're all around the same topic. So like we did one on around books and reading. We're doing one on games coming up at the end of this month. And for the first time we've ever done this, we are varying some of the times for different audiences in different months. So the one that we'll do at the end of this month, we're going to offer one in the morning and one in the afternoon because we recognize it's summer, and this evening is a great example. We had a lot more folks on in the afternoon. It's a beautiful summer evening. Lots of folks have other places that they like to be right now. So for that one in late June, we'll be doing them. I believe it's a 10 and 2. So those are some of the changes, that we've made in the structure and the format. Rest assured, looking forward, we do still plan to have webinars. We're going to continue with the 1 hour format and space the webinars out most likely throughout the year next year. And we are considering doing some live broadcasting. So think like Facebook Live or broadcasting to YouTube Live. Again, those that participate in those manners will not be able to receive Act 48 credit because of the tracking piece. But we hope that it can help to possibly spread the word about the webinars and get this information out to more folks. But that's something that we're considering, not a done deal yet. When we really thought about then, and sort of took a look back or step back and looked in the mirror and, really analyzed what we were doing, we participated in what we called a question storm. So it wasn't so much a brainstorming, but we were looking at different questions. We came up with these, how can we reach people where they are and when it is convenient for them? We know that, people are receiving PD in different ways than they were 7 years ago. And we wanted to be, cognizant of those changes and trends. We want to deliver content that's relevant and useful for diverse audiences. So we want to see how can we do that. How can we engage educators in more meaningful and sustained ways? And really, this is probably the one that was my biggest piece. Was really, I felt that what we've been doing over the years, while it's been fantastic, I think we sort of scratched the surface in terms of developing meaningful relationships or contacts with folks. This is a very much a one-way communication system. You guys are great listeners, but I'd love to be able to hear more from you and get to know, some of your challenges and respond in a more meaningful way. And then finally, how do we continue to harness the power of technology? As I mentioned, we're on our third platform because technology changes, and we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of things that are going to be useful for us in pushing out content and for you in receiving it. So those are some of the things that drove us to our plan going forward in providing what we hope is an enhanced professional development set of offerings. So one of the things that we initiated this year, and I'm trying to think if anybody in this group in our current book study, if you'll raise your hand there in the feature. Yep. Okay. I thought Chris and Kimberly one of our Kimberlys. Awesome. So we are doing a dollars and cents book study. So the book that we're focused on is called Dollars and Cents by Dan Ariely and Jeff Kreisler. And it's a 6-week online session. And this was our first foray into this kind of a delivery of PD. The requirements are that the folks, all of our participants read the book, so 3 to 4 chapters at a time. And by at a time, I mean in a week. It's max, I think, around 70 pages per week. Then respond to a prompt for each of those 3 to 4 chapters, and then reply to at least 2 other participants' posts for each of those. We will weekly schedule to keep everybody at the same place and on track, so that we are sort of tracking along with each other. That online book study, I thought by scheduling it at the end of the school year, we would maybe get 10 or 15 people. I was all excited, but I was nervous because I've never taught in Canvas, which is this site that we're using, or learning management system that we're using. So, you see, we've got things are broken down in different modules, and we're mostly focused on the discussion. So, you go in here and you post and reply to people, and it's awesome. It's great, but I'd never been a teacher in it before. So I was like, oh, we'll do this at the end of the year. It'll just be a small group. I'll warm up for summer. And lo and behold, we have 52 participants, which is awesome. And it was, I will confess, a bit daunting. As you can see here, we've had, as of last night, 3,207 discussion posts, which I'm not completely caught up on, but I'm working on it. It was definitely more than what we anticipated we would get in the first session. And so we've had to calibrate our allocation of time. And it's been a great learning laboratory. You do something the first time, it's kind of like, the first time that you teach a lesson and you think, well, that went well, but next time I think I'll do this, this, and this, right? So it's been very informative, and we are going to do some things different in session 2. Session 2 kicks off on June 17th. And we'll go through the end of July. We already have 49 folks registered for that. If you are on the line and interested in registering for it and have not yet done so, I'm not going to discourage you. I would certainly encourage you to do that. I will let you know that we are not planning to do a mass email. We're not in the bang on everybody's doors and try and get more people. I'm perfectly content if we continue with 49. But that said, if we end up with 55 or 60, that's okay too. I'm not going to discourage anybody from participating, but I'm certainly not going to try and go knocking on doors trying to get more folks out, because I think this is a decent number, and it's a number that we know we can manage with the right resources. So we're excited about it. So if you are interested, we've gotten a lot of really good feedback. These are some of the quotes from some of the current participants. Basically overall, folks are really enjoying the book, and they found it interesting. One of the things that Fred Lapointe is going to talk about in a little bit, or who's going to share with you some of his sort of financial literacy, professional development, sort of background and history and what have you. But his comment before was, this is going to be a hard book to top, because the book itself is really good. It's really well written. And so you can see here from some of these comments, that people are talking about it with their friends and with their family. They're finding ways for it to help them both personally and professionally. And some of them are also looking at ways that they can use passages and sections of the book within their own classrooms. So I think it's really been interesting. One of the things that we've also noted is we have folks that teach across the grade span. So these aren't just high school personal finance teachers. We've got elementary and math teachers and social studies and science, and we've got folks that are doing all sorts of different stuff that are engaged in this, and that's really been neat and exciting. In exchange for the time that folks put in, they get 20 hours of Act 48 credit, and everyone that participates also has the opportunity to submit a culminating activity for 10 extra hours. So you can see here we're giving folks a variety of different options for that culminating activity. And I don't know, one of the things that we talk about in the book study is this notion of fairness. Fair is not always equal. So the folks in the first session and the folks in the second session both have their culminating activity due in August. We figured this way, the folks in the first session didn't find out what these requirements would be until partway through, and are sort of kicking off that now. The folks in session 2 are going to know what these are from the very get-go, so they can start working on them and do them as they go along, or they can do them afterwards. But all of those will be due in August, for everyone at the same time. And I think those will be really fascinating to review for the folks that choose to participate in that. We are looking at a variety of different books to possibly do future book studies on. So these are some of the ones that we mentioned in the evaluation for our folks in the first session to weigh in on what they might be interested in. These are some of these I've read from cover to cover. Some of them I have in my stack and will be working my way through them as well. They all have fantastic reviews. The ones that I haven't read myself, I'll still have great reviews. So I'm looking forward to seeing what folks are interested in terms of future book studies. So we'll see where that takes us. We're planning to use this same format and move from book studies, or add, I guess, in addition to book studies, more sort of online courses. So whereas these webinars are what we call synchronous learning, where we all need to be in sync or in the same virtual or physical place at the same time. Asynchronous learning takes place when I can log in at 1 and you can log in at 3 and somebody else can log in at 7, and we're all sort of participating in the same space and replying to each other, but we don't have to be there all at the same time. And that's how this book study has worked, and that's what we're looking at in terms of these online quote unquote courses. We're looking at them following a similar multi-week schedule. So it could be a 2, 3, 4, 6 week, whatever it is, session. And I think one of the things that we've learned from this book study is that there's sort of a maximum number that we think that we'd probably be able to do well in a section, and so we will likely limit the number of participants. So it will be one of those first come first serve kinds of or by application for some courses. So when you see news of these things coming out in the future, I would encourage you to register quickly so that you can have the best chance of securing a spot. Some ideas for some of those course topics, and again, we're asking folks that are participating in our book study what they might be interested in. A number of these focus at the high school level, which is where we usually have started out our emphasis for resources. Not to say that we could also certainly do some of these at the middle school and elementary school level. So these are just some examples, but focusing on specific financial topics. So maybe, for example, trying to enhance professional content knowledge around, say, spending a week or two on investing, or maybe just one whole session or course on investing. Versus another way to look at it might be based on specific resources or curriculum. So maybe we spend a week looking at next gen personal finance, and next week we look at the National Endowment for Financial Education's high school financial planning program, or what have you. So there's different kinds of approaches that we can take to this, and we're going to explore different options. Another possibility is to invite some folks from different financial education resource providers. In particular, I'm looking at other state agencies to share what they offer and their expertise. So we actually have a couple of folks from state agencies that are going to be joining us as observers in the second session. So a couple of folks just kind of want to get a taste and feel for what this Canvas environment is like and what it might look like if they were to drop in and serve as sort of an adjunct instructor, if you will, for a week in a session with us. Another idea is on making personal finance a graduation requirement. So all of these are things that we have as thoughts and suggestions. Feel free, by the way, over in the chat to send us any notes to the panelists. If something that I mentioned really stands out and you say, that's a great idea, I love it, feel free to comment on that. If you feel like, hey, I wish I'd seen this on the list, feel free to post that in the chat as well, because I can go back and make a note, or you're always welcome to shoot me an email afterwards as well. So we've talked about sort of 4 different options for PD right now. The first 2 are the ones we've been doing for a while and we'll continue to do, live webinars that are, be here at 3 p.m. or 7 p.m. kind of thing on this date. So they're synchronous and they're scheduled and they act for Act 48. But really, when we look at them, the interaction between the participants and, myself or others is pretty limited. When the recorded webinars, people can do it whenever they want. They just, go to YouTube and listen in, maybe they do the full hour or they do a little bit here, a little bit there, what have you. It's on demand. They don't get Act 48 credit, and the interaction is pretty much nil. The dollars and cents book study, again, that and the online courses, asynchronous, so you can drop in, whenever you want, but it is scheduled. So, like for example, week 1 is week 1, week 2 is week 2, week 3 is week 3. There's a start and an end. We've been able to give very generous Act 48 hours with those, and the interaction is relatively high. So now I feel like, here we go. It's the OxyClean, but wait, there's more. That's kind of how I feel when I was putting these together. But wait, we have more in store. We have other plans. So let's talk about 3 more opportunities for professional development. One is the small professional learning communities, the Making Sense PA Facebook and Twitter chats. And I'm going to spend a few minutes going over each of those. So the professional learning communities, the goal of these is to be smaller, 3 to 6 people plus a facilitator, more personalized, so that we really, this really dives into that whole meaningful component that we talked about earlier. And we want it to be very topic driven, and this last piece is key with the way that we plan on rolling some of these out, is that they're very collaborative. So we're really looking to learn together, not so much us pushing out content and information and you being a recipient. I joke that, what we, I don't know, maybe not joke. I like to say that, what we say is good education nowadays is not sage on the stage anymore, right? And I feel like what we do in these webinars is very much sage on the stage. It's the person standing and delivering content, and what we know is great. What great educational practice looks like now is people engaging together and sharing their experiences and what have you. And so this hopefully will provide us with a format for doing so. So imagine you have these 5 happy financial educator participants, and they've all signed up to be a part of this one professional learning community, either probably because of 2 things. 1, it's a topic that interests them and that we've announced, and 2, it's a schedule that they think will fit for them. The first week when we're all together, we might pick participant number 1. Participant number 1 in this example in this example, I imagine that everybody has been tasked with identifying or bringing to the table 1 lesson or activity or unit that they'd like to improve. And so in this model, we would have sort of a rotational system where each time that the group got together, they would focus on a different participant, where that person says, okay, here's what I've done. Maybe they email some documents out ahead of time, share those, or they just describe the situation and say, I'm trying to improve this. What ideas do you have for me? So basically, one of the things that we know as well is that a lot of folks that teach personal finance or, are knee deep in financial education are very frequently lone rangers in their schools. There's often only one educator that's doing this. Meanwhile, the math teachers and the ELA teachers, there might be, multiple teachers, for example, teaching algebra, right? they can bounce each ideas off of each other, share different strategies, share different thoughts. There's lots of people out there teaching that same exact content. This is an opportunity to bring folks together that, have the same sort of, challenges and struggles, but, also learn from each other. And so this is really what we're aiming to do with this. Again, we've got some initial topics that we've thought about, but we are open to lots of other ideas. And that's something that we really want to hear from you about is, what would you like to see? What would compel you, for example? So, we have one person on the line as a high school family and consumer science teacher. What would compel you, or what would you be interested in spending, say, 4 afternoons or 4 evenings with a group of other folks, chatting about. In terms of scheduling, we're looking at doing these in a variety of different ways. One is to say, okay, we're going to do it on this topic, and we're going to let the first 5 people that can do it on Monday afternoons join, and we're going to do it for, say 5 Monday afternoons in a row. We also might say, hey, we're going to do one for this week, and we're going to do all of them at 3:30 to 4:30 in the afternoon. And so, sort of a set time and what have you from the get-go. The other option is, hey, we're going to find a group of 3 or 4 teachers, and we'll work with each of you and our facilitator to come up with a time that is going to work for everybody's schedule to get together. So there's sort of some different ways to approach this, and we're going to try and probably try both of those and see what works. So that is something that we're really excited about. In all fairness, we have completely stolen this idea from Next Gen Personal Finance, something that they do at a national scale. But we also recognize that financial education looks and feels a little bit different everywhere. And so, there's some states where they have a very standardized curriculum. It's a certain group of teachers that teach it. There's sort of things look and feel different from one place to another. Here in Pennsylvania, it is very diverse. And we want to be very cognizant of that and very customized to the things that are, on the plate and on the minds of Pennsylvania teachers and delivering these. So that is something that I'm really excited about, and I hope that you will be too when we roll these out starting in the late summer. So with that, I have 2 other components that I want to chat about. The first is the Making Sense PA Facebook group. So, one of the things that we want to do is, as we said, create more meaningful contacts. So part of that is just about building a community. And one thing that we know is Facebook is where a lot of people already are. And so we have established a Facebook group. I would encourage you, if you have your phone next to you right now and you're a Facebook kind of person, go on Facebook right now while I'm still chatting and type in the search button or the search area Making Sense or Making Sense PA. You will find or should find both a community, which is a page, and a group. And so what I would encourage you to do is like the page and ask to join the group. So the difference between those two is that the Making Sense project, anybody can view it, things that are posted, or come up in search engines. The group is one that it's not a secret group, but it is a closed group. Not just everybody can join. I look for names that are familiar, and if I don't recognize somebody, I'll ask a question to see who they are, where they teach, so that we're trying to keep it to a collegial group of folks that are focused on financial education here in Pennsylvania. So I would encourage you to join that. We are still small, but please come out, join us, and please share that information with other colleagues that you know. So others within your district or other colleagues that you know at other schools. We're really hoping to use this as an opportunity to exchange ideas, share challenges, share successes, lift each other up and be a resource for each other on an ongoing informal basis. So I hope that I'll be seeing some of those requests in my notifications here later this evening from a number of you. All right, the last one that I want to talk about is still tentative. We haven't, committed to this or what it's going to look like, but we are still looking at Twitter chats, which we know, there's a number of folks I know that love Twitter chats. I enjoy them at times. I get a little overwhelmed myself personally. So this is one of those that I'm kind of trying to come around on. But we do anticipate doing some of these. They'll be led by somebody with passion and an interest in this. And we will probably develop the questions and share those in advance. Also, probably with a link for folks that have never participated in a Twitter chat to try and figure out, how do you do that and what are some of the best practices. So that's, again, something that you can look for more information on coming out in the future. So how are we going to make all this happen? Because I have yet to find a way to replicate myself. And thus far, most of the work of our project has been stuff that I've been able to do on my own. But we recognized that in order to take these things on, that we needed to build a bigger team. And so we have recruited some folks to be financial literacy ambassadors. We also have some other folks that have applied to become an ambassador. And I'm looking forward to engaging with some of those folks and bringing them on to our team as well. And they will be used to do things like facilitate book studies and courses, facilitate those professional learning community conversations, and then lead specific projects. For example, taking the lead on some of our social media, updating on some of our older materials that we developed, like our iTunes U course and our Model High School course. So without any further ado, I want to welcome one of our first financial literacy ambassadors. His name is Fred Lapointe, and Fred is up here in this very tippy top part of this old photo from 2010. And I'm going to let Fred tell you a little bit more about it. But Fred, I hear that.
Tell them where you are, though.
Oh, yes. Well, I was front and center on this one. I wasn't in all of the photos, but it appears that I was there. There I am. That was a 10-year, 9 years ago photo of me. That was before my kids gave me gray hair, but alas. So it is great to have Fred joining us, and he's going to talk a little bit about his financial education journey and share some of his passion. I think will come across in the deck that he's going to share with us, and I think it'll be great. So, Fred, I'm going to turn things over to you, sir.
Terrific. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm excited to be here. And first, let me thank Hillary for the opportunity to talk with you today. If you're participating in this webinar, then you're probably the type of person who no doubt cares about our youth and wants to stay on top of their game. So as one of the new FinLit ambassadors, let me tell you a bit about my background. And hopefully there's some content here that you can use to up your teaching repertoire. But I will warn you in advance that as someone who teaches middle school and high school, I have told a fair amount of what students call dad jokes, and you may encounter one or two in this presentation. You are hereby warned. So briefly, I teach in a rural area in south central Pennsylvania where there's a lot of agriculture and some light industry. Our town is near the sweetest place on earth, which I'm sure we can all agree is Hershey, Pennsylvania. Now, our town is famous. First, back in the late 80s, TV personality David Letterman, I know that's before some of your time, proclaimed that Lebanon, PA was his hometown office. Although he had never stepped foot in our town, we graciously accepted the title. Secondly, Lebanon is famous for Lebanon bologna, a tasty treat developed by the Pennsylvania Dutch, and it's based on the best smoked sausage traditions of Western Europe. It is made of beef and has a distinct tangy flavor. Raise your hand if you've tried it. In any event, I guarantee that if you try it, you'll like it, and that's no baloney. Okay, so for the last decade, I've been teaching at Lebanon Catholic School. It's a small private school, K through 12. It's based in Lebanon. And when I say small, this photo actually shows our entire student body standing in the gym, making the letters L and C. The class sizes are small. and I teach grades 6 through 12. Students have asked me which grade I like best, and I usually tell them A. Now get to work, get an A in my class. But seriously, every grade has pluses and minuses, and one definite advantage of my setup is getting to work with the same students from one school year to the next. So some quick info on my teaching career. First, you should know I'm a Steelers fan. And as you can see here, our school has a very relaxed dress code, especially around late October. But seriously, I have worked in the business world for over 2 decades, and I started my second career in the mid-2000s in teaching, and I got my teaching certification from Shippensburg University. Now, my first full-time teaching position was great. I was working at a career and technology center, and the goal was to graduate students with skills where they can immediately get a job. Now, my students included high school students and adults, and I learned a lot about prepping people for entry into the workplace. I was also able to start an internship program with our local VA hospital, which fortunately led to full-time government employment for some of my students. Unfortunately, the administrative assistant program was shut down due to lack of demand. Not enough students were signing up, which on the plus side led me to my current position at Lebanon Catholic, a school that I love. Now, I feel that a good teacher also has to be a good learner, and I feel fortunate to have been able to take a lot of different courses and workshops in my career. Now, most of these were free, and some even paid stipends. I recommend you folks out there look at what you can find out there. There's great opportunities. You get to hear from experts. You enhance your skill set, and you'll meet some interesting new people. Now, this was taken at the New York Stock Exchange back in 2015. That's me with the red, white, and blue tie. And it was a really interesting time for the exchanges. Computers and automation, they were starting to replace the hundreds of stockbrokers, the human beings who worked on the floor. And people were also hearing new words like flash crash. Now, I remember having lunch with some of the disgruntled stockbrokers, and we teachers sure got an R-rated earful. Now, I will call your attention to that last bullet item, Pennsylvania Governor's Institute on Financial Education. This workshop, it was held at Elizabethtown University. It really opened my eyes. I was kind of like that person on the island that Hillary talked about earlier. And this is a great experience, and for this Lapointe, it was a turning point. Now, here we had teachers from all across the Commonwealth, and everyone was focused on how can we better teach our students personal finance. Oh, and by the way, Hillary is hard to miss, as she can be found right here, right in the middle, dead center in the photo. I have no doubt she did a tremendous amount of work behind the scenes to make it all happen. No, I'm not talking about her standing in the center of the photo. But what really got me excited about personal finance was attending this week-long event. This is an email I sent to my family while I was there. The agenda was terrific. There are all kinds of outside experts, excellent support materials, plus you got to talk to other teachers and share, we got to share some best practices. And I hope that's something we could do in the future. So there's a lot of resources, some fun activities. And if I recall, the Jenga thing was some kind of team building exercise where we partnered up with some fellow teachers. And fortunately, this picture was taken right before the Jenga it all fell down. Now, we covered a lot of ground, and I felt at one point it's like my cup runneth over, which reminds me, the coffee there at E-Town was really good. So this workshop had tons of great instructional resources. And the topics, very broad. And these resources, they were curated resources. They were free, lots of exciting ideas to use in the classroom, plus just, networking with other teachers. And I feel I benefited greatly as a teacher. And I took advantage of opportunities I never would have considered, like working with our local credit union or bringing in business people to teach the junior achievement programs. So when I look at, 2019, I feel that the challenge here is how do we keep the educational magic going on in this online age? And we know the world of finance is really dynamic. It's ever changing. The tech is advancing. We have micropayment apps like Venmo and Apple Pay. They're getting popular. And every time I log on, someone wants me to buy something and put it on my credit card for just a mere $9.95 a month. Well, this leads me to our next topic, which is to ask you teachers, what is your motivation? So for me, I really feel we are teaching critical life skills. Too many people are living paycheck to paycheck. Too many people are living with onerous debt. And what the message on this slide means to me is that we as a society, we're dedicated to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and we can't afford financial ignorance. And what I mean by financial ignorance, well, next slide, please. So it's been a long road to recovery from the 2008 recession, when the housing bubble, it just burst and these financial institutions collapsed under the weight of untenable credit default swaps. There's a mouthful. There's been a lot of pain and suffering from the fallout of 2008, upside down mortgages, lowered job prospects for college grads, and mounting levels of debt. Now, imagine, perhaps things could have been different if these home buyers, if they were more financially savvy and they said no to easy credit, no to jumbo mortgages and balloon payments. And I really feel like this whole recession, it's led to a whole generation of young folks who believe that I probably won't do as well as my parents. And the slide here just underscores the high level of student loan debt out there. And the sad fact is, despite our booming economy, there's many people living paycheck to paycheck. As it says here, 4 out of 10 students are still, paying off college loans, and they can't cope with a $400 emergency. And this slide just reinforces, it says 45% of college students, they regret taking out as many college loans as they did. So I think this slide speaks for itself. I'm sorry to disappoint any STEM teachers out there, but 18 to 24-year-olds, when they were asked, they overwhelmingly picked personal finance as the one course that would benefit them the most in life. So, now I've talked about some of my motivations, and I just sum it up like this. What can I do to help my students succeed in their money life? And if you're inclined to teach financial literacy and competence, I'd like to leave you with a question. What's your motivation? So this next topic is about some of my educational interests, goals, and influences. So first, let's face it, our students spend far too much time playing video games. Now, the idea of gamification in the classroom is quite a bit different. It's about using the elements of gameplay in a productive way. We want our students to, we're basically looking at activities that they find engaging and will further their learning. So in the classroom, I often use some free gaming platforms like Kahoot or Quizlet. We'll review vocabulary, I'll introduce a new topic, or maybe prep for a test. Then you have standalone apps and websites, lots of games related to personal finance. And Hillary will be talking about those in our next webinar. One of my middle schoolers' all-time favorites is the Farm Blitz game. It appears to be a game about raising different crops, but it's really about good saving habits and avoiding too much debt. It's a fun way to introduce these concepts to middle schoolers. So, if I look at real-world scenarios, this kind of comes from my training at the Career and Technology Center. Real world has real problems, and the idea here is to find resources that deal with the real world and that students can relate to. Now, our Pennsylvania Department of Insurance, they have a great PowerPoint on car insurance and distracted driving. It's student-focused. It looks at the world from a teenager's perspective. Will this young lady make safe driving choices? It's a free download and worth the time for all of your students who are just getting their learner's permit. And real quick, here's 2 more examples. Junior Achievement, they have a terrific program where Explore Your Future, they bring together people from industry and they cover a lot of ground. They talk to the students what it costs to live, what employers are looking for, And students do a kind of a speed dating thing where they talk to people in many different careers. It's a great way to spend the day. They even do some kind of Jenga thing, but I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure they stole that from the Governor's Institute. So the Bonsai Life Scenarios is just what it says. You get a bill from the ER department at Mercy Central Hospital, but earlier you just bought an expensive ticket for your favorite band, the Styrofoam Burritos. I did not make up the name. That's in their booklet. So when I look at the third area, collaboration, again, Hillary kind of hit the nail on the head when she talked about, hey, we're on an island. It'd be great to talk to other folks and, you know, share ideas. And if you look at, you know, collaboration, something that comes to mind obviously is, you know, math and money. And, you know, here's something where when I teach Excel, we're doing budgets, we're doing some what-if analysis. You look at car loans, interest rates. We're doing research on, you know, what are the actual cars out there? What's the MSRP? What's the current interest rate? All that stuff. We can give students real-world problems to work on, make it relevant, and there's opportunities where teachers can collaborate and add a personal finance component to their instruction. Okay, so, you know, this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. And when you look at the range of support materials, the lesson plan, there's so much stuff out there. There's a lot of help out there, and a lot of it's free. And I'll just go briefly over some of the things you might want to consider. Next, we have Nephi, and they offer some of the finest materials available for teaching personal finance. They break it down into 6 categories, from money management through insurance. And the materials are free to download with a teacher account, and you can order printed materials like student workbooks for no charge. I often use their student handouts when I'm introducing the topics of wants versus needs and tracking your budget. Okay, next we have foolproofme.org, and this is online courseware that students can use at their own pace. These modules have a great mix of video and interactives, plus there's a pre and post test to gauge student learning. One of the things I like about the design of this course is they use everyday language that teenagers use. Like you see here, one of the modules is titled, Why You Can't Have and Do Everything. Kind of the way a teenager would talk. Okay, so finally, there's a terrific resource, and that's courtesy of one of today's sponsors, as well as your tax dollars. Pennsylvania Career Zone is a great website for students to explore careers and higher education. I use this Budget Your Life module with my 9th graders, where we talk about what it costs to live on your own. Students get to make different choices on where and how they like to live. And most of them pick, I don't want to live with my parents. If you want to live in Philly, it's a lot more expensive than living in Lebanon. And at the end, you come up with the total number for the month, and you better find a job where you can afford this fancy lifestyle you're living. So again, this is there's some great web-based resources for you to try. So finally, I want to talk about this app called Pennsylvania Learns Personal Finance for High School. And this is an app that Hillary alluded to earlier. And I worked with several teachers on this back in 2015. And the idea was to take the model personal finance curriculum and find some high quality online resources that teachers could use to supplement their personal finance lesson plans. So, you know, quickly, here's kind of an example. We found a great video from PBS about Eddie. He's a new college student. He's just got an apartment. He has a car. He's in a band, but he has money problems, and he's trying to figure out how to save enough money to pay for a 4-year college. And he meets with a financial planner. And there's some great teacher support materials, discussion questions for your class. How does Eddie learn to create a budget, and so forth. So anyway, this app is out there. It's on iTunes University. But at the end of the day, it's 2019, which is something like 100 years in internet time. And there's several web links have expired or gone missing. Plus, there's some newer resources to consider. It's time for an update. And this is one of the projects I'll be working on this summer. Our goal with the PA Learns Refresh is to offer more quality tools for your teacher toolbox. and to make it more readily accessible, whether you're using iPads, PCs, or Chromebooks. Well, that kind of wraps it up. I really thank you for your time, and my hope here is that you've seen something today, something that will motivate you to try something new and level up your teaching game. So with that, I bid you good day and good teaching.
Fred, thank you so much. That was great. I think it's obvious why we recruited Fred to join us and help us to work on all the things that we're taking on here. When we talk about a Finlit ambassador, that really is exactly what Fred is. He's an ambassador for financial literacy education, and I think that's that to me is that passion is what we want, and somebody who's been doing this for a while, long enough to have played with different resources, and when somebody faces a challenge, be able to offer some ideas, but also just as eager to continue to learn and be a lifelong learner himself. So we're really excited to be able to share these resources and sort of set out on this new course, if you will, to expand what we're doing with financial education, professional development here in Pennsylvania. And we look forward to you joining us on that adventure. So last but not least, thank you so much for participating.